that make him going forward?
He's used to getting his way within the organization, but his desire to be traded hasn't changed.
Right now I'm just focused on being here.
He's used to getting what he wants from this franchise.
Our relationship continues to build, and that's a good thing for everybody.
Hey, Key, you know who this is? You got it.
Look, man, I just say that, look, this is all I'm saying, is it's a band. They all got those little skinny ties and those suits and those bad haircuts. And one had a cartoon and a TV show, and the other flew on planes and got the girls. That's all I'm saying. Same thing to me. People might think I'm crazy, but if, you play the music, I'll be like, oh, that's the same to me, basically.
So the former Key talking about was the Monkees, the latter, the Beatles, and the late, great Casey Kasem would certainly say if he was introducing either of those two bands, keep your feet on the ground, keep reaching for the stars. And let's talk about a superstar in the NBA with Woj. He joins us this morning on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Side. All right, Adrian, here we go. Preseason ends on Saturday. Opener is Tuesday. Rockets opener is Wednesday. Only seems appropriate. It's against Harden's old team, the Thunder, as we wait to see who his new team is going to be. From the reporting that you have done, what's the latest you can tell us on James Harden?
Hey guys, I think there's more conversation, maybe even a little more traction with more teams here in the last several days, and Houston has, they haven't moved past Philadelphia and Brooklyn, his preferred destinations. Those are still two teams who I think are going to be engaged in this. But you're finding more teams, I'm told, and talking to teams in both the East and the West who want to be involved in this, and who I think, especially because Harden has 2 years left on his contract, it's not a one-year rental, are showing a willingness to maybe offer up some assets that might be enough in the end to get James Harden. The one thing that is happening, guys, the Rockets are working with James Harden. They're making him aware of the scenarios out there because I think if teams are going to trade for him, they want to have a sense of how James Harden feels about being there.
Woj, one thing you reported was that the Sixers are willing to put Ben Simmons in the deal, but talks haven't gotten anywhere. What are the chances that Harden lands in Philly with or without Simmons?
I think it's really hard for Houston to do a deal with the Sixers that doesn't include Ben Simmons. And listen, I think where Philly is, they're very careful about putting him in a deal that's not going to get them back more than James Harden. I think if Ben Simmons was going to be in a deal to Houston, it would perhaps have to be even bigger than just James Harden. I'm not sure that's how Houston looks at this. I think they'd like Ben Simmons plus a bunch more assets. So those two teams aren't close. That doesn't mean they won't re-engage here at some point. But I think especially Doc Rivers is very hesitant about breaking up that Simmons-Embiid partnership. And I think certainly Daryl Morey has qualms about it without getting back even more than James Harden. Remember, you're trading a 31-year-old player for a 24-year-old player, and especially given that Joel Embiid's in his mid-20s, puts you on a different trajectory. It really closes your window, limits your window to maybe how long you have potentially a contender for. So they're going to be careful with the Ben Simmons piece there. You saw Daryl Morey come out yesterday and said, we're not trading Ben Simmons. Well, I certainly don't think they're trading Ben Simmons just in a deal that looks like it's straight up with some picks for James Harden. I think they're going to want a lot more than James Harden. That might not be a deal that's available to the Sixers. And I think for right now, you're going to see them continue with the Embiid, Ben Simmons partnership as Doc Rivers, starts his tenure in Philly.
Let me ask you this though, Woj. What happens to players around the league, East, West, that hear their names potentially floated out there, and then they're not traded in the Harden deal? And you look at what happened with the Lakers in what happened with AD and those names being floated, and it didn't happen, and the Lakers completely collapsed at that point. What happens then?
Well, Kate, you know what happens, guys, in a locker room. It can become a major problem for a head coach, for his teammates. Guys get uneasy when they hear that. And, hey, unless you're one of 4 or 5 players in this league, and even then, you're probably going to be involved in trade talks at some point in your career. There's very few players who won't be. And I think if you're on a team that's a contender right now in the NBA, you're not one of the best 1 or 2 players, certainly as long as you're not the best player, because you're not trading your best player in a deal like this. You're usually trying to pair them up. But if you're a very good young player on a team, that's a playoff team in the NBA, you're probably in a conversation with Houston about James Harden, just like you might with other great players if they become available. Because what Houston wants, besides draft picks and potentially pick swaps, they want your best young player, or they want you in a 3-way deal to go find a young player that they really like on a third team and get him in this deal and give that team assets. So that's going to be the conversation for Harden, and it can and does upset the order of teams, especially as the season is getting going, and that's why teams are so careful when they're going to have talks with Houston. For example, they're going to say, I need you to ask me for this. Give me some plausible deniability so that I can go back to my guys and say, hey, I didn't offer this. They asked me for this, and then we said no. Or the day where you say, okay, yeah, we'll do it, and then you make the trade. But teams are careful in these situations.
That is the NBA's best insider. On the way, will the Raiders, Las Vegas, fellas.
H-Town.
Redbox has new movies at the box and streaming on demand. Don't miss Tenet, starring John David Washington and Robert Pattinson. Visit redbox.com for all the ways to watch. So here's the latest on the Harden saga. He wants to go to Brooklyn, maybe Philly. Other teams are in the mix, but shying away if they don't know if Harden will give them a long-term commitment. This is Woj on SportsCenter yesterday saying if he goes to Philly, think about the other one really big piece the Sixers would have to part with.
The Sixers have signaled a willingness in these talks to include Simmons in deals that include Harden, but likely would need to include a lot more. They haven't really gotten traction, Philadelphia and Houston, on a Harden deal. They have talked. They've talked about a number of scenarios, and among them, Ben Simmons has been brought up. But right now, Philadelphia is reluctant to break up that Embiid-Simmons partnership without a massive haul back, and I think in their minds, perhaps even more than James Harden.
And one thing I would mention here, Jay, real quick, is that Daryl Morey has been open and adamant that Ben Simmons is going nowhere. But as you know, Woj's reporting is as good as it gets. What do you make of it?
Well, there's a guy sitting in Phoenix, and his name is Chris Paul, and I'm sure he's sitting there thinking to himself, man, I remember that one time Daryl Morey told me that I wasn't going to get traded, that I was going to remain a Houston Rocket and spend more time with my kids. And look what happened with that scenario. So, look, it's somebody coming out and saying, I am not running for the president of the United States. Chances are you're running for the president of the United States. Ben Simmons is the one piece that if you're the Houston Rockets, you want. You probably want a little bit more. I'm sure the Philadelphia 76ers want a little bit more in what they're getting from their end. Seems like we're at a stalemate. I think a third team is going to have to come into play here.
All right, we'll see. Let's have a little fun with this one. Kawhi Leonard, as we know, has a somewhat, shall we say, unique personality. Not too long ago, earlier in the week, he was on Jimmy Kimmel Live, and Jimmy asked him a story from mythical lore.
You were at a team dinner with the Spurs when you played for the Spurs. Everyone was eating. You didn't order anything. Instead, you brought 12 apples to the table, red apples. You sat there with a knife and fork and ate each apple and said, it's apple time, apple time.
Who came up with that story right
That is
there?
not true?
They must have seen. No.
Okay.
No, not at all. I do have an apple tree, but I didn't pick my apples and bring them to dinner.
All right.
Okay, it's 6:52 a.m. Eastern. Breakfast for dinner, right? That's what it is right now. Breakfast for dinner. Give me a good dinner time story from your days in the league here, Jay.
So I'm not going to say a name just because I don't want this person to come back and to challenge me or hurt me. But I will tell you, as Keyshawn knows, I will tell you that during a dinner, about 7 or 8 of us went out in LA, and one of my teammates ordered a filet, medium rare. And on the filet, he also ordered a scoop of ice cream, vanilla ice cream. Now, I will tell you that there was hot sauce on the side. I've never seen anything like this before. I don't know if it was the whole dichotomy between hot and cold at the same time.
On top of the steak or on the side?
A scoop of ice cream, vanilla ice cream on the top of the filet. Hot sauce on the side.
Yeah, that
I saw it.
teammate.
I don't know. I can't
Was he any
speak to
good?
it.
Wait.
I can neither confirm nor deny. I do not want to give details. I do not want to see this man show up to my house in Connecticut. I'm just saying it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen in my life. And he ate the whole thing. He ate the whole thing. It was no problem. I mean, I'm talking kid. Sucking the fingers, everything. Just
something wrong with him.
Never seen hot sauce mixed with ice cream and a steak. Weird dressing I've never seen.
Jeez.
So think about it. You got a great cut of meat, Frank's Red Hot, and a scoop of ice cream. The only thing I can think of is you're going from surf and turf to surf and tartufo.